Hello and welcome to Instrumental Ramblings with me, Dusepo. And this episode we're having a look at the Casa Museo del Timple, which I was lucky enough to visit a few years ago. This is located in Teguise on the island of Lanzarote, which is part of Spain. It's off the coast of Africa, but it's owned by Spain. So this is a museum primarily about from those islands called the Timple. However, it also has a wide collection of other small and not so small instruments from around the world. So this here is a traditional timple. As you can see, it has relatively few frets. It has 5 single nylon strings in a re-entrant tuning. The lowest pitched string is actually the one in the middle. It's a GCEAD. But the most unique thing about the timple is the arched back. As you'll see later, there's an exhibit about how they're made. Here is another traditional timple. Another one, as you can see also, similar to the Baroque guitar and the Renaissance vihuela and that sort of thing, the fingerboard is level with the soundboard. And also the soundboard kind of goes up the neck a bit, where the joint is with the fingerboard. Now on to some of the other instruments that they have in this museum. This here is an akonting from West Africa. This one is actually from Gambia, but it's played all over that region. And this is an ancestor of the North American banjo. And this of course is a Baroque guitar, which kind of had to be in the Timple Museum, right? Because it's such a close relation. And gives a very good example of the similarities in construction. So this also has the fingerboard level with the soundboard. It has 5 courses of strings. Strings on this are gut, as they would have been historically on the timple before it was switched to nylon. However, of course, the Baroque guitar is usually much bigger than the timple. Another difference is this has tied frets, whereas the timple, at least nowadays, has modern fixed metal frets, but historically also had tied frets. This is an Arabic oud. It has the wider, larger Arabic style body as opposed to the smaller Turkish one. This looks typical of ouds made in places such as Egypt, but I'm not entirely sure where this one was made. This is a cavaquinho of the type played in Madeira. Slightly different to the cavaquinhos played on mainland Portugal, but this also has steel strings. The main difference is that the fingerboard is raised and the bridge has a saddle design, much like a classical guitar or ukulele, as opposed to the 2-piece bridge design commonly found on mainland Portuguese cavaquinhos. Now this is a very interesting and quite rare instrument. This is a tiple doliente from Puerto Rico. Now what's particularly interesting about this is the modern tiple dolientes from Puerto Rico, as they're played nowadays, would tend to have 5 single steel strings, but this one, the strings may be nylon, it's difficult to tell, but most interestingly, the tuning of the tiple doliente is all in fourths, but from low to high, so not a re-entrant tuning. However, this appears to have a re-entrant tuning with the lowest string in the middle. Now this is very much like tiple dolientes and other Puerto Rican tiples in the past would have had, as opposed to that modern tuning of low to high. This may be a historical variant or it might have been restrung, not entirely sure, but very interesting nonetheless. This is a Venezuelan cuatro or cuatro venezolano. Very typical fast strumming style used on this instrument, hence the golpeador or scratch plate at the top of the soundboard there. This is a viola boera, which is a traditional type of viola, which is a traditional guitar-shaped instrument from Portugal. This has a very typical shape of this instrument, but there are lots of different other types of violas from Portugal, each with a slightly different guitar shape and different stringing, but they almost always, apart from 1 or 2 exceptions, have 5 doubled steel strings, so 5 courses of strings. They are ultimately descended from the Renaissance vihuelas, although of course they would have had gut strings instead of steel. This is a kora, which is a type of harp-like instrument played in West Africa, places like Mali, and also on the coast in the same sort of regions as the akontings seen earlier. A very typical, beautiful sound to this instrument. If you look at kora, K-O-R-A on YouTube, you'll get an idea. This is a cekontrong, which is a traditional instrument from Indonesia and Malaysia, particularly Indonesia. There are two variants of this instrument. So this is more like the harp type variant. There's also kind of a more lute type variant, which has the same kind of body shape, more of a straight neck and a peg box which angles back like a lute. But you can finger the strings as opposed to this type, which is only played open like a harp. Now what's not so obvious from this picture is the body is actually made of a gourd, which is hollowed out, and then this soundboard is put on the top, which is highly decorated. And the sound hole is actually in the back of the gourd. It's a small round sound hole cut in the back there. This is a mandolin with a slightly arched back or flat back, typical of the instruments made in Eastern Europe and Germany and places like that. I'm sure you're all familiar with the mandolin. This is a bowed rabab. This one is from Morocco, but it's played kind of throughout North Africa, particularly in Berber music, and also in Andalusian music with the quithra and the oud arabi and that sort of thing. This is a Turkish saz, a very typical traditional instrument from Turkey. 3 courses of steel strings and tied microtonal frets, as you can see there. Also interestingly in the back, well, towards the foreground, there is an Indian sitar. There's also that same mandolin and chekontrong in the background. Also in the background you can see a ukulele, which we'll come to later. Turkish saz has 3 courses of steel strings tuned in fifths. Quite often the highest course is actually 3 strings rather than 2, but this one looks like it has that. This is a rebel, which is a traditional bow instrument. This one's from Galicia, but it's also played in various other parts of both Spain and Portugal. This is a ukulele, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. So it's tuned G, C, E, A in re-entrant tuning with the G an octave higher than you'd expect. And now onto this section of the museum, which is La Metamorphosis de la Madera, the metamorphosis of the wood. And this shows how the instrument is made, the timple, traditionally. You can see a picture here of a luthier working on a timple. And here are various templates and clamps and such for the timple. But you can also see, interestingly here, a template for a bandurria and a laúd at the top here as well. So here is one of the bracing patterns used for the timple. You can see it's a fan bracing system. Also here are the sides or ribs, which have been cut ready into the shape to receive the back. And here is a mould for making the timple, which we'll have another look at here. There we go, it's a better picture. So you can see here how the timple body is constructed around the mould. Here is a closer view of the ribs or sides, and also the 2 pieces which make up the back and surround the central piece. Here you can see various pieces of the kerfing and binding used on the timple, and also the various stages of construction for the neck, and a rather nice piece of ebony here. Here is a completed timple body. As you can see, it has the Spanish heel joint for the neck, and they've put a strip of paper down the middle there, like you would see on a lute. Here are the ribs being sanded down to receive the soundboard. You can also see the arch there of the back. And here are various pictures of the process of making a timple, el proceso de fabricación. And that brings us to the end of this episode. If you've made it this far, firstly, congratulations for putting up with my instrumental ramblings, but also, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to subscribe if you wish, but if you don't want to, that's fine too. I'm not your mum.